Welcome back. Now, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has fixed November the 16th for the governorship election in Kogi and a rerun election for Kogi West Senatorial District. Now, in Kogi State, the PDP candidate, Engineer Musawala, will be contesting against the incumbent, Yahya Bello, of the All Progressives Congress. For the rerun, it will be Dino Malaya of the PDP and Smart Adeyemi of the All Progressives Congress. Now, in the midst of all of that, there are other parties as well that are also wanting to make an impact. They feel they have something to say as well. So the question is, how prepared are they all for the elections? What is it that they are coming to do differently than what has been in the state? Well, to help us look at all of this, we have in our Abuja studio, here in Lagos, we have joining us Mr. Emmanuel Orugun, governorship aspirant of the ANRP. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We also expecting in our Abuja studio Mr. Farouk Adejo Audu, who will be joining us from our Abuja studio. We also expect Senator Smart Adeyemi or one of their representatives, because yesterday we heard that they're going to be there. So one of them should be joining us as well with the PDP representative in our Abuja studio. But we'll start out here in Lagos with Mr. Orugun. Mr. Orugun, the elections are just a couple of weeks away. Couple of days away. What has it been like preparing?
We have been preparing since the primaries, from the declaration of the primary state. Now, we are warming up for
Kogi State is a very important state, historically speaking, location, geographically speaking, and all of that. Why do you want to be governor?
Yes, I want to run because there are a lot of things that have to be put in place. There are a lot of things that are not going on well. And so, for us to have a state that is fit for all, where we have developments, where we have jobs being created for the youths, because we have a lot of youths that are jobless, and it holds a lot of problems to be solved.
Okay, let's look at those things. What are those things you're saying are not in place?
Okay. For example, my manifesto is problem and solution based. What I mean by this is we have problems and we have the solutions. So in ANRP, what we're looking at is to ensure that we solve the problems. You know, for example, anywhere where we have human being interactions, so there's bound to be problems. And when problems are generated, we need to solve those problems. And so, for us in ANRP, we have an ethos.
Okay, you know what? Just hold on. I don't know if the producers can let us see what's happening around Kogi, and I know that we'll be back in a moment. Let's see if we can sort out that matter real quick. Welcome back. Now, you said there are problems in Kogi, but from that report we've seen there apparently everybody seemed to be happy. So why do you say there are problems that need to be fixed?
First of all, I would like to state that the ethos, one of the ethos which I love so much, says the secret of change is to focus all of our energy not on fighting the old, but on creating the new. So the second one, in every society where we have human interactions, there's bound to be problems. Problems comes from human interactions. So, and how far and fast we're able to solve these problems will determine whether we'll progress, we'll be stagnant, or we retrogress. And so, for us, the first problem that I've identified is to have zero tolerance for corruption. You know, there's no nation, there's no state, organization, or individual that will attain sustainable development if corruption is allowed to fester in the system unabated. So it is not a problem of no funding, because Kogi State, as of this year, is 28 years old. So it is not that we don't have access to funds, but because we've not been able to channel our funds properly to where it should be. And so for us, we are going to be tackling corruption. And we're not going to tackle corruption from the point of fighting people after they have embezzled money. We are going to be removing corruption from the preventive side. That is, we introduce things that will make it difficult for people to have access to funding, to funds that they steal. For example, introduction of a software to manage processes, strict compliance to procurement processes. We have auditing, we have open transparency and accountability, and a whole lot of things like that we will do. So that is to solve the problem of corruption. And the second one, which we also want to solve, is to ensure that in the system, we try as much as possible to do well in the areas of diversification. Because the problem we have is that we borrow. So we borrowing itself is not a problem. But when we borrow to the point that we use the funds from borrowing to finance our recurrent expenditures, especially payment of salary, that means that we are heading for the rock. Because at some point, we will no longer be able to, we will not be creditworthy. And at that point, we will no longer be able to borrow. So for us, we have our diversification plans, because my manifesto is titled The Economic and Industrial Development for the Great People of Kogi State. So that means that for us to have sustainable development, we need to diversify. When we borrow, borrowing is good, but if it's not used for things like capital expenditures and other things that will make funding, that will generate fund, then we are not doing well.
Okay, so, you talked about fighting corruption, you talked about development. But you see, these are basically the same things that every other person is talking about. How they'll fight corruption, how to stop people from getting access to funds, how we have to diversify the economy. It's the same statement, the same rhetorics, nothing different from what all the other people have said. But how would your movement, or how would what you want to make any difference? But you answer that when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Okay, so we're back, and we've been joined from our Abuja studio by Mr. Farouk Adejo Audu. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Audu.
Good morning, viewers. Thank you. Yes.
Before you came in, we had the governorship candidate of the ANRP, Mr. Orogun, here in Lagos, and he was talking about the fact that what his party is going to do. But I asked him a question, which I'll allow him tidy up on, and then I'll come to you to tell us exactly what it is that you people are planning to do differently. So your answer to the question about fighting corruption, diversifying the economy, which is the same rhetoric that almost every other person has put forward there. How's yours different?
Anybody that will fight corruption.
Okay, thank you very much, Nyota. The People's Democratic Party, as you remember, was the government that was in power before the present government came in. And before we left...
Mr. Adejo Audu, can you just hold your thoughts a moment? I hadn't brought the question to you. I wanted Mr. Orogun to tidy up what he had started before we went on that break. Then I'll come back to you. Okay. Thank you. So we'll come back to you in a bit. Mr. Orogun, tidy up your answer.
Okay. Anybody that will fight corruption must, first of all, be an anti-corruption person. So it must be somebody that is averse, that is opposed to corruption. Because what we have is that corruption and developments are two extreme entities. The more you have of one, the less you will have of another. So for us, we want to grow. We want to move forward from where we are. So we know that for us to move forward, we need to ensure that we don't have corruption. We take corruption away from our system. And this we want to do by open transparency and accountability. We want to do this by, we're not just fighting corruption. That is the point I'm trying to bring. We are trying to tackle corruption from the preventive point, as in remove access to things that make people to have access to fund. Those are the things. From that end is where we are coming from. And then what we want to do is like using software to manage our financial transactions, removing or reducing completely the cash transactions in the system. So,
okay, I'll come back to you. Look at that bit about the software. Is it that the softwares are not corruptible? But let me come back to you, Mr. Adejo Audu. You were saying something about your party that was there before and now wants to come back. Why should anybody think about bringing your party back?
I mean, the answer to that is extremely simple. Since we left office, the difference has been extremely clear. The difference has been extremely clear. There's been no governance in Kogi State since 2015. I mean that January 2016 that we left office. There's been no governance. Everything has broken down. Everything, infrastructure, in fact, everything, security, just name it. No governance is going on in Kogi State right now. So, I mean, the choice is very clear. The choice is very clear. They will, I mean, Kogas are resolved that what they had before was far better than what they have now.
So what's the different thing that you want to come and do again? You were there before and you want to come back. What's different?
The things we have been doing. The provision of infrastructure, provision of governance. Okay, I will give you an example of the most talked about issue in Kogi State. There has been a government in power that does not pay salaries to workers. And in the history of Kogi State, this government had more income than any other government. In fact, sometimes two other governments combined together. The government of Alhaji Ibrahim Idris and the government of Idris Wada, they never had, I mean, if you combine the two of them together, I'm not sure they had the kind of income that this government has had. In 4 years, Yahya Bello has assessed close to 500 billion naira. And I'll break it down for you. His deputy was here not long ago, telling us that 298 billion of federal allocation had come into the state as at February this year. Now, an average of 6 billion, that average, that is the minimum, comes into the state every month. Now, if you take 6 billion from February till this time, which is about 7 months, you have something like 42 billion. If you add that to 98 billion, you have about 340 billion. Now, you have about 50.8 billion from, what do you call it, from bailout funds that has been given to this government. If you add that, that will be about 390 billion. Now, if you take the Paris refund, which is well over 11 billion, you are talking about, it has crossed 400 billion. Now, you also recollect, I mean, there's been controversies about facilities obtained by this government, running some estimate, because there's been a lot of secrecy about it, but it's estimated that the man had obtained about 100 billion naira worth of facility from banks, Zenith Bank, Access Bank, and some other banks that he has obtained. We're not talking of overdraft and all that. If you put that together, you have over 500 billion naira. All through Wada's stay in government, the average income of government was about 2 to 3 billion naira monthly. If you put that together for 4 years, as in, let's say, you are talking about, let's say, assume that you are getting like 36 billion in a year. If you put that together for 4 years, that is well less, I mean, it's less than 200 billion. About 200 billion. So compare that to Ibro's time, which was even less. Both of them combined together, Bello has gotten more funds than anybody. And yet there's no single project commenced, completed, and commissioned by Bello till now. It's not, I mean, we're not understanding about this. They are not denying it themselves. Except possibly maybe there's a 2-story building in Lokoja that if you value it, maybe less than 100 billion, 100 million naira or 80 million naira. Then you have a roundabout.
Mr. Adejo Audu, all that you've been saying, no project, no infrastructure, these are the same things that your party was accused of before you were ousted.
No. I do not think so. I do not think that anybody accused us of lack of performance. I do not think that was an issue in that election. The issue in the election was, I mean, we had we had problems in the PDP. There was problem in the House that created the crack that made the PDP, that made the APC to win. And if you remember, the person who won the election that Bello is benefiting from was an extremely strong candidate who had been governor of that state twice. So when there was crack in PDP, it was possible for the APC to win. It was not because of failure of governance. No, nobody.
So now that there's no.
Anybody said that at any point, even if anybody said that at any point, with the benefit of comparison right now, nobody will say that anymore. This government, the government you have in Kogi right now is a failure, complete failure. Forget about those traditional rulers that came and said they were endorsing him and all that. Traditional rulers do not control the people. As a matter of fact, traditional rulers have turned out to be anti-people. That is so far what we have noticed. Traditional rulers do not control the people. What the people feel is extremely, is quite different from what you were hearing from.
So the question I asked you was, what are you coming to do? What are you coming to do differently? What would you be coming back to do different from what you did before?
You see, our candidate has said this repeatedly, that the moment he comes in, he will declare a state of emergency for governance in Kogi State. Number one, we're going back to to repairing infrastructure. As I talk to you today, there's no single motorable road in Lokoja. None. 2 days ago, the newly sworn in controversial deputy governor had to turn back. He was trying to pass a place called Ganaja village, and there was no road for him to pass because there was a gridlock, and he was stuck in the traffic. He now had to drive against traffic and turn back from that road. And it is like that every single place in Lokoja. Now, if the state capital is that bad, you can imagine what happens in the rural areas. Nothing is going on. Now, we're going to bring back infrastructure. Roads will become a priority. And we did say that the funds may no longer be there, because if you have facility, the bailout fund is a loan. The government has obtained loan close to 100 billion naira and all that. And I think they were about giving him another 10 billion naira recently, before there was an outcry by Nigerians. Now, when we get to office, we are going to start paying these loans. So we're thinking out of the box. When we get to office, a lot of infrastructure will be done by PPP, because that is the only way we can move forward. The money that is meant for infrastructure that could possibly have lasted Kogi for another 20 years has been frittered away within 4 years by one person. So we're going to engage in PPP. Take, for instance, we already have a plan, and we're discussing with a lot of people. The road leading from Ajakuta to Itobe is one of the worst roads in Nigeria. It's about a 3-kilometer road that could take you a minimum of 1 hour to pass. That road, which is also a federal road, and the federal government has not bothered, we are going to take the initiative of negotiating with developers who will do the road and put a toll gate on the road. People will be happy to pay.
Okay.
Now,
all right.
we come to
Mr. Adejo Audu, let me get a response from the All Progressives Congress. Senator Smart Adeyemi joins us via phone. Senator Adeyemi, thank you for joining us. Now, there are several things that have been put out here. One is a lack of infrastructure and salaries that are being owed by the current government in Kogi State. Now, we have the governorship candidate of the ANRP here in the studio, and we have Mr. Adejo Audu representing the PDP in Abuja. And both of them have talked about things that they are going to do differently. Mr. Urugun talks about the fact that they are going to fight corruption, and they are going to ensure that the things that cost people to even see the funds, they're going to prevent it. They're going to prevent corruption, not just fight it. So, but what is it that is your response in the face of no salaries being owed and lack of infrastructure in Kogi State? And they all say it's your government that's doing this.
Well, let me apologize for my inability to attend. I was invited yesterday, but we are preparing for our flag of today. Now, having said this, when you talk about the problem, you want to look at the origin. The PDP administration institutionalized corruption in Kogi State. So much that by the time this government came to office, the APC, and they went ahead to carry out an in-depth investigation, we discovered that about 1/3 of the so-called workforce were withdrawing their salaries outside the state capital, outside the state entirely. In Port Harcourt, in Lagos, in Enugu, people were we join salary. So investigation reveals that children of those who were privileged in office when the APC and the PDP was governing for about 16, 17 years. They included the names of their children, of their relatives, who were not on the work, who were not working for people. So this thing was revealed, and of course, I personally was trying to advise the governor not to go into the war because I knew whether I can be extremely institutionalized. The man was courageous and said, we have to do it. So they now formed an army on the internet. Went around pulling down the name of this government because he's fighting corruption. Now, very soon, after this election, they're going to be prosecuted because it's just a light army of people, young boys, people who were ignorant of what they were doing. Now, the PDP party should bend their head in shame. Okay, I left the PDP because it's a party in Kogi without direction. Okay, then people decide. They were in office for 17 years. They are judging a man who's just barely 4 years in office. These people should bury their head in shame. The institutional corruption, maladministration, deliberate investment, misappropriation of funds under the PDP. Let me tell you this. When I was in the PDP in Kogi State, that's what they call stakeholders. These are prominent people, and they listed our names. Until I told them nobody should include in that list. What were they doing then? They were giving them monthly allocation, monthly salary. They called them stakeholders. I told the EFs to go ahead to do the investigation. Many of these people may end their life in jail. So they should be ashamed. What are they talking about? They caused the problem of Kogi State. You are talking about a man who is barely 3 and a half years in office. I'm not saying we were not on salary at the time. It was difficult to even know who was a worker in the state. Now everybody says it's on the payroll. So who will accept that kind of a system? The institutionalized corruption. And when you fight corruption, they will fight you back. So in fact, many of them, thousands of them, they put up voice on the internet. They were trying the name of the government. This government, I'm not saying, is a perfect government, but it's far better than all the government that ever got to this state. I can say I can stick my integrity for that. Okay, I'm not in this government because I need anything from them. I came to this government because I know this young man will make a difference. And those are those making the difference.
Okay, Senator Adeyemi.
Let me just say this. In the PDP, when they were governing for this state, two of the former governors, their community had no electricity. Where they claim they came from, they have no electricity. In my own territorial district, my community in Analyse, we had electricity as far back in 1973. Now they are embarking on 150 communities electrification projects. What are they talking about? They should be ashamed of themselves. In their community of these governors, they have no electricity until this young man came. And now you want to destroy him because corruption is not allowed to flourish. For me, I have a conscience, and I'm not in that. I'm standing. If I've been judged in any corruption, they will have responsible. If I'm collecting money from Jaya, those of their brothers and sisters in civil service, have said so. I'm a man who believes in whatever I believe in, and I stand by it. Okay. All right.
So Senator Adeyemi, just a quick one here. It's a yes or no question. Is Kogi State owing salaries?
As far as I know, so far, all outstanding salaries have been paid, except those people who are still having issues. There were workers without certificates who were placed on level 10, level 12. There were people who are dropouts who were placed on level 9. Now they were fully employed, but they discovered these guys cannot perform. They don't have the competence of where you are placed there. So those are the things that try to cause. As far as those who have been here, there's nobody that this government is owing. That's the truth.
All right, I will get back to you. Mr. Rugu, you've heard from Senator Adeyemi, you've heard from Mr. Adejo Audu, and how would you now make a difference if everybody is saying that it is the other person who did wrong? Senator Adeyemi has talked about the fact, he says the APC is correcting all the errors of the PDP. And the PDP says there's nothing on ground to show for it. So what is yours that is different from what the others have said?
Okay, what APC and the PDP have been saying...
Unfortunately for you, you are the governorship candidate. So it is what you say now that everybody will be taking.
Okay. For what I know, there are still some percentage salary that is owed. There's percentage salary payment in the local government level. Okay. Up till, because I've been monitoring it for quite some years. So, and on infrastructure, our roads are not motorable. Even within the state capital, there are some of the areas that are bad. So on infrastructure, what we want to do is to start from a problem which we've seen. We've seen the trend. And the trend is that we keep borrowing. For example, in 2014, I think the total debt that Kogi State owes is 21.24 billion. And as at 2018 December, it has risen to 94.83 billion. That is about 446.7%. So that means that we keep borrowing money. So if you are borrowing to finance projects, projects that will generate income, that will be fine. But when we are borrowing to pay salaries and recurrent expenditure, that is where the problem is. And for us, that is why we are focusing on having our economic development plans. Economy is safe. The simple definition for economy is the production of goods and services and the supply of money. So it is the production of goods that causes the supply of money. So for us, we are looking at areas where we will come in and then we will be able to use one stone proverbially to kill 3 birds by generating employment, generating income for people involved, and also generating income for the state.
All right, thank you. Senator Adeyemi, if you're still there, and Mr. Adejo Audu, we'll take a moment, and when we come back, we'll get the 3 of you to give us your closing statement, what the people of Kogi and indeed Nigerians and the world should be expecting come November 16th. We'll be back in a moment. Please join us again. Welcome back. Our closing moment. Mr. Adejo Audu, you've heard all this. As we round down now, what should everyone be expecting beyond the election?
Well, like we have said, we are coming in to bring governance back to our states, to give relief and succor to our people from these last 4 years. These 4 years have not only been a failure of government in issues of salaries and all that. Violence has also been visited on the people. Rather than invest in infrastructure and in people, the investment has been heavily on thuggery and violence. Kogi State is the violence capital of Nigeria right now, and that is not in doubt. As we are going into this election, our major fear, our major concern is of violence, because even the security agencies that that are constitutionally charged with ensuring a peaceful and secured environment for every human endeavor are looking the other way, and particularly calling out the Commissioner of Police in Kogi State, Mr. Hakim Busari. He's the only person who is not aware that arms are being amassed, thugs are being trained. Even the DIG came and publicly announced the other time that some people were training militants for this election. The resident electoral commissioner of ANRP in Kogi State announced publicly that this election was doomed to be marred by violence. And if you look at the violence is being perpetrated by only one person, and that is the sitting governor. When we did our Congress, for the nomination of our candidate the other time, the Congress was attacked by gunmen. And we hold him responsible. He's the chief security officer of the state. As I talked to you, that Congress that was attacked, the commissioner of police was sitting down. It was the venue was just a walking distance from the SSS office. Till today, nobody has been arrested. There's been nothing coming from police or the SSS. And we take it that they know the people who did this thing and they are looking the other way. The other day, we issued a statement that there are over 100 tinted on registered vehicles in Kogi State that Bello is planning to use for election. Journalists interviewed the commissioner of police. He claimed that he didn't know it. The commissioner of police must be the only, Hakim Busari must be the only person in Kogi who doesn't know that there are tinted vehicles all over Kogi State, that they are using menacingly to threaten people. My brother, in the last election, 2019 February election, 10 people were killed, all of them were PDP. Not a single APC person sustained injury anywhere. That is to show you where the violence is coming from. And my colleague Smart Adeyemi was talking about corruption and all that. With all due respect to him, he was president of NUJ when I was a practicing journalist. I would like not to talk about his propensity for falsehood. I would not like to talk about that. But the truth of the matter is that Bello is not fighting any corruption. If you collected 500 billion naira in less than 4 years, and you are talking about people combined together who didn't get 400 billion in 12 years, what are you talking about?
So are you implying that two wrongs make a right?
Collected 500 billion naira. Sir?
Are you implying that two wrongs make okay? So I committed a crime, but the crime of the other person is bigger than mine. Is that what you're implying?
There are infrastructure on ground. The biggest water project by any state government in the Middle Belt, if not north, is in Kogi State. The Greater Lokoja Water Works. The Greater Lokoja, which is no longer working.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Adejo. Thank you very much. We'll have to hold your thoughts there. We have to go, but let's get Mr. Rugun to give his closing thoughts.
Okay. Apart from the corruption and our diversification plans, we also have other plans, especially for the workers. We want to ensure that whatever the problem is, we want to sit down with the stakeholders and solve the salary problem once and for all, permanently.
You think you'll be able to pay the new minimum wage?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. And then the other things that we want to do on youth and women empowerment, we've already signed. I was in a program that was organized by Vote Not Fight, Election Not War, and Stop Violence Against Women in Politics. And I signed their agenda because we have a Kogi youth agenda and the women agenda, which was prevented. So, and I signed it as a commitment to as a sign of my commitment that I will support and implement the plans because they are also part of what we have in ANRP. On security too, we want to ensure that we ensure that we take the security of properties and of the human lives.
All right.
Very importantly.
Thank you very much. Emmanuel Urugun is an ANRP governorship candidate. Thank you for joining us. Farouk Adejo Audu represented the PDP and he joined us from Abuja. So we also had Senator Smart Adeyemi of the APC join us via telephone. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. We wish you well in the elections. Sunrise will be back in a moment. Please stay with us.